here. So there's about 20,000 graves in here. 13,000 are the prisoners. This is of the national cemeteries the Park Service owns, not the VA. I think there's 14 the Park Service owns. This is the only one that's active. People can still be buried in Andersonville.
The last state monument in the park was dedicated by Governor Jimmy Carter, who had worked towards Andersonville's inclusion in the national park system. He encouraged the state of Georgia to erect a monument. So, dedicated on Memorial Day in 1976, the Georgia Monument serves as a memorial to all American prisoners of war.
So what looks like a fort to the right is a fort built by the Confederates. So they had a couple small fortifications along the outside. You can see some monuments that would have been inside.
26.5 acres. They close the door and say, well, this ground of the Civil War. Some more die here as prisoners of war than die at Antietam and Gettysburg combined. 12,920 Civil War prisoners of war die here. Started about 1862. It's called the Dix Hill Cartel. The Union doesn't really want to negotiate with the Confederate government. The system's not really good, but it does work. At least you're not holding on to thousands of prisoners. At the Battle of Shiloh, more men are killed there as casualties, I guess you should say, than the entire Revolutionary War. Now, Abraham Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation. It comes out on January 1st of 1863. And when that happens, it really changes the war. It allows African Americans to join the Union Army in combat roles and in a lot greater numbers. So about 250,000 African Americans join the Union Army. Well, the Confederacy says we are not going to exchange black soldiers. The Union says that we're not exchanging anybody. So that system before, where you were exchanging prisoners and not holding on to so many, what that's going to do is now you're responsible for holding all of these men. So going into 1864, prisons in Richmond for the Confederacy. Richmond has got Libby and Belle Isle prisons. They are very close to battle lines up there. They're getting very full. So they really decide they need a new place for a prison. The single highest day is August 9th. There are 33,006 prisoners inside this 26 acres. You do not want 33,000 prisoners escaping en masse. So the gate here is an enclosure. It's about 40 feet by 40 feet, all the way to a square. The prisoners march in that way, and they come in and they're held in that little area. They close off both sides. Stream of water that the prisoners are supposed to be able to drink from. Now you're talking about 8 to 10,000 is what they were going for. When you look at it, I think you'll all agree that it probably wasn't going to work even for that many, much less when you've got 30,000 men in here. Water for prisoners of war across the board is a big deal. And so these guys are no different. Unfortunately, the heat of Georgia in August hits the height of the prison. Again, August 9th, there's 33,000 prisoners inside here. Cause of death, diarrhea is number one. About 5,600 guys die officially of diarrhea. And that is because of the food. So right here we are at the South Gate. This is where they bring the food in for the prisoners every day. Now, Commandant Henry works even to tens to make sure that everybody gets food every day. They all have to come and do a roll call. They count them every day, so we have very good statistics on how many prisoners are here, who's in the hospital, and where everybody is. Where they grind up the cob. Sometimes the husk is in there. It's not sifted. It's very coarse. It's very hard to digest, and that's what causes all the diarrhea here. Henry Wurst, he sends letters up to Richmond and says we can't keep feeding the prisoners this stuff. It's going to kill a bunch of people. It's not healthy. We're going to be short. And I'm sorry, they get about 10,000 pounds every day. Now that's regardless of whether you have 2,000 prisoners here or 30,000.
Food came in daily
basically
on
in the cemetery.
carts,
I don't know if y'all have gone through there
and
yet or
loaded
not.
up with the dead guys,
Yeah.
and
Right.
took
So y'all
them
went to the
right over
cemetery. So
here.
you see the trench. They dig about 150-foot trench, and they lay them shoulder to shoulder to shoulder. Initially, they had buried them in coffins, but they run out of wood pretty quickly, about April, and so they end up just laying them as best as they can. They have a number that's on a stake. It's attached to the body too, and they write the number down. Of course. Most guys, when they're captured, it's on a battlefield, so whatever they have is what they have. Sometimes Confederate soldiers are going to take stuff from them. These guys, part of their surrender terms was that nothing could be taken from them. Had brand new uniforms that had just been issued. So when these about 3,000 prisoners enter in early May, they bring a lot of new wealth into the prison at that time. The prisoners, some of them kind of make fun of them. There are newer troops with they come in, and if you're bad and have been bad before, you see an opportunity. So at that time, the group, they call them the Raiders. It's these gangs that had formed. They kind of start being more blatant in their actions, jumping on people as they're coming into the prison, or being, not necessarily in the middle of the night now. They're doing it in the middle of the day, being very violent, cutting people and threatening and all those things. The initial hospital for the prison, we're talking about a hospital, we're talking about tents, not real hospital. The initial one was inside the prison. They moved it out to this southeastern corner, which that was probably the worst spot they could have chosen. All of this Sweetwater Creek and Stockade Branch meet each other not too far from here. It's swampy now, it's really bad. Mosquitoes dug up there. You've taken a lot of time. They're 80 feet deep, some of them, and they do find water. They rig systems to get the water back out, but as it's raining, all the stuff that's on the surface of this ground just, of course, goes straight into your well water, so not good. You probably, even by this time, scurvy setting in with a lot of the guys here. After eating that cornmeal for a month, scurvy, lack of vitamin C. They knew how to treat it. They saved whatever they could, a lot of sweet potatoes and things like that. They saved for the hospital, the sickest of the prisoners, to try to help it, but they don't do very well at all. The original wall, they had impressed slave labor. That's in January of 1864. When they start having to feel like, so when they do expand this up, and you can see now the northern expansion goes 10 more acres, the prisoners actually built the expanded wall. Guards are going to stand. They're about every 90 to 100 feet, again, all the way around the prison. They stand up there all day long talking. We've had a lot back and forth. Of course, they didn't have phones and things like that. And so a lot of exchanging of goods goes through prisoners. A lot of that kind of thing happens. Prisoners and guards. Some of them actually, because they're people, they become friends. We do have about 115 African-American prisoners here. They would get brought here. Now, a lot of bad things happen to African-American soldiers that are captured after Saltville and went to hospitals and actually killed African-American soldiers in their hospital beds. It's crazy. Not every Confederate did that, but there were certain regiments that were known for it for sure. The ones that make it to Andersonville from Olustee, they say, okay, Winder, what do you want us to do with them? And he says, just throw them in there with everybody else. So fortunately here, they're not treated any better or worse. In the heat of Georgia, about 3,000 prisoners die in August alone. We are often compared to Elmira Prison in New York, which again was bad. I'm not going to argue that. But 3,000 total prisoners die at Elmira. 3,000 die here in August. You can see the headstones in the cemetery get closer and closer together as they're, of course, dying very rapidly. And at that time, they think for sure he is coming down here to liberate this prison. We know now that he had no intention of doing that. As they're thinking, though, they're definitely coming down here to liberate this prison, they start sending all the prisoners out. So they do a mass evacuation of this prison. September 7th, anyone who is well enough to walk gets loaded up onto these trains. Over a few weeks, they pretty much empty it out. And they get sent, now they're holding on to them for the most part to other prisons. They send them out to prisons in Savannah, Charleston, and Florence, South Carolina. So by November, you've got about 1,200 prisoners total here. That includes the hospital.